What's up, YouTube? Today on the channel I wanted to discuss the idea of watches as investments, or more accurately, why I think watches are most certainly not investments. This idea came to me because a couple of days ago I saw a video by one Mr. Kevin O'Leary. If you're not familiar with him, he is one of the hosts of that television show Shark Tank. He's a multi-hundred millionaire, maybe he's a billionaire at this point, and he suggests that, yeah, you should invest in watches.
Hi everybody, Mr. Wonderful here, and welcome to another episode of Wonderful on Watches, one of my favorite topics. Here's the thing about watches. They're a phenomenal investment.
Not only does he say watches are good investments, he in fact goes and doubles down saying they're phenomenal investments. Then he digs deeper down the rabbit hole and says, all you need to do to become a watch investor and collector is get these 6 watches.
Rolex Daytona, Patek Philippe 5711/1A Blueface Nautilus, Audemars Piguet AP, Royal Oak, Rolex, the GMT 2, Pepsi, the Submariner Hulk, the legendary Rolex Batman.
Well guys, it's just that simple. If you want to be an investor and high-end collector, all you have to do is get your hands on these 6 watches. That's right, just get your hands on a Patek Philippe Nautilus, get your hands on an AP Royal Oak, and then a handful of the most difficult to find, highest demand Rolex watches, including the Daytona, the Submariner Hulk, and a pair of GMT Master IIs, the Batman and the Pepsi. And you, sir, are an investor.
Now we're starting to talk about investing in watches.
The problem that I have with the idea of saying that watches are a phenomenal investment is that it's incredibly misguided advice. He went and cherry-picked 6, and pretty much the only 6 watches that you could possibly make a substantial amount of money with in the watch game. Sure, there's other ways you can make money. That's a little bit of hyperbole. You could go ahead and get into the vintage watch game and make a little bit of money there, or you could ride that limited edition watch wave with Seiko and Omega, pick up those hot watches right when they come out and flip them right away, but those are kind of exceptions to the rule. For the vast majority of the entire scope of all of the watch market, you're going to do nothing but lose money if you try to quote-unquote invest in watches. It does a huge disservice to people that watch these types of videos. They think to themselves things like, oh, I'll just go buy a Rolex Datejust two-tone. I can't possibly lose any money. And then 2 or 3 years down the road, when they realize that they've overspent or overextended their budget and they need to get out of that watch, that they're going to lose 20, 30, maybe as much as 50% on that watch if they bought it brand new at retail. There are smart ways to buy watches, but even if you do the smart thing, buying pre-owned, buying at good discounts, shopping around, you're probably at best going to break even on the vast majority of even really high-end respectable brands like Rolex. There are not many super hot, in-demand watches that appreciate in value. Another thing that was really humorous about that video, 10 years, that's what Mr. O'Leary said about how long he waited to get his hands on a Patek Philippe Nautilus. That is insane. Somebody that's basically a billionaire waiting that long for a watch, how long do you think the rest of us might wait to get their hands on a Nautilus at MSRP from an authorized dealer? I could think of a hell of a lot of better things to do with my money over the course of 10 years than wait on an extremely limited supply watch that's in very high demand. Another thing that I drilled in on and I really want to pound home here is that Mr. O'Leary talked about 3 brands in particular.
Rolex, of course. Patek Philippe, Audemars Piguet.
And even within those brands, there are very few desirable and/or watches that have the potential to escalate or rise in value. Within Rolex, there's, 4 or 5 models, maybe, if we're being generous. Within Patek Philippe and Audemars Piguet, there are basically 1 model, and that's it. You got your Royal Oak with AP, you got your Nautilus, maybe the Aquanaut as well with Patek. A lot of people are going to think like, oh, all Rolexes, or oh, all Patek Philippe's. No, absolutely not. Not all Rolexes, not all Patek Philippe's, and frankly, most certainly not all Audemars Piguet watches are going to go up in value. They're in fact terrible investments. Now don't get me wrong, if you like a watch within the scope of that brand and you want to own it so that you can wear it, by all means you should buy it and you should enjoy it, but don't expect to even keep your money safe, let alone to increase in value. Another thing that even Mr. O'Leary touched on, 10 years to get a Nautilus. Try to get yourself a Rolex Daytona. How long do you think that's going to last? Probably forever is the truth of the matter, unless you're an extremely good customer at the dealer that you're trying to buy it from. And how do you become an extremely good customer? You have to buy other watches. Let's say you go ahead and buy a gold day-date, you buy your wife a Datejust, you buy a couple of other things, maybe they're a jewelry store and you purchase some of their extremely overpriced jewelry. all of that money that you've sunk into building the relationship with the authorized dealer actually is money that you spent on the watch. So even if that watch does appreciate in value, you're still way behind the 8 ball. You've already spent way more than any amount of equity that you're going to get out of that watch should you decide to ever flip it. Another thing that people don't really think about when they're talking about making money, i.e. investing in watches, is how incredibly difficult they can be to sell. People will go on a website like Chrono24 or maybe a gray market dealer website like David SW and say, oh look, here's a, let's just use the Rolex GMT Master II Pepsi as an example. Here's a GMT Master II Pepsi being sold for $19,000. That's what it's worth. First of all, that is not what it's worth. That's what they're asking. A lot of times when a dealer lists a price, they're just fishing for offers. That is not the price that it actually sold for. A listing price is not the value of a watch. Second of all, people like David SW have built up a reputation over years and years of being a dealer, and they can command those top dollars. If you want to go out and sell a watch, you're not going to get the same kind of money that an extremely reputable dealer is going to get. As a matter of fact, you're probably going to have to sell to an extremely reputable dealer just so that you can protect yourself in the end. For example, when I sold my Rolex Explorer, I didn't want to go through the hassle and the risk of potentially being ripped off on eBay or Craigslist or any of the other number of other places that I could have sold the watch. Sure, I could have made an extra $500 or so, but I didn't want to have the concerns of somebody trying to rip me off, rob me, doing a chargeback, claiming that the watch was fake, any of number of things that could possibly go wrong. I sold my watch to a dealer, and I did not get anywhere near top value. That's what most people are going to want to do if they're going to want to be safe. If you want to be a flipper, you got to be a professional, you got to flip a lot, and yeah, that's the only way to make money in this game. I guess the moral of the story is, yeah, there's a lot better ways out there to make money than quote-unquote investing in watches, i.e. flipping watches is really what we're talking about. Can you make money at it? Sure. If you want to be a professional, by all means, give it a shot. It's something that, yeah, you know, used watch dealers and gray watch market dealers do all the time. It can be done. I don't think it's worth the hassle. I don't think it's worth the risk. And for the casual person that just says, oh, I want to buy a couple of watches and protect my money and I'm going to invest it in watches, no, that's, I think, honestly terrible advice, especially when we're talking about the 6 watches that Kevin O'Leary pointed out. Without qualifying it, without making it perfectly clear that those are more or less the only 6 watches that his advice applies to. It's a little irresponsible of him to sort of frame it in the perspective that any Rolex, any Patek Philippe, or any AP would also follow these same rules, and frankly they don't. 99.9% of the watches on the market just lose value. They don't even hold their value.
What I love about watches is you're having a fantastic time wearing them, but you're also investing in this platform.
I would recommend finding something better to do with your money and stick to watches simply as a hobby, something to enjoy, and accept the fact that if and when you sell them, there's a good chance you might lose some money on them. Alright guys, thanks for tuning in. As always, I greatly appreciate it. If you'd like to help me out and support the channel, there's a number of ways that you can do that, always found in the description of every video I do. Down there are links to my social media accounts, be it Facebook, Twitter, or Instagram, as well as my Facebook group, the JustBlueFish Watch Club. I highly encourage you all to join the JustBlueFish Watch Club. We've got about 1,150, almost 1,200 members now. The group is growing. It's a really fun place to hang out and talk about watches. If you'd like to help me out financially, I could really use more support over on Patreon. A big thanks to the guys that have been over on Patreon helping me out. I greatly appreciate all of that support. Finally, if you'd like to support me financially without spending any extra money of your own and you shop on Amazon, click my Amazon affiliate link before you do your shopping. If you like something that I've reviewed and you're thinking about buying it, or anything else for that matter, click on my Amazon affiliate link. It'll bring you over to the Amazon homepage, and then you just do your shopping like normal, buy whatever you'd like, and I get a small commission. Those commissions most certainly do add up, and a big thanks to everyone that has been using that affiliate link. Well, that's going to wrap this one up for today, so until the next one, bye now.